Well, there goes the clock. Hello and welcome to another edition of Live Stream Insiders. We're talking about live streams, and also we are live from London and live from Dublin as well. My name is Peter Stewart. My background is in professional broadcasting, radio and TV, and training and writing, all about presentation and production skills. And my co-host is Krishna Day. Hi, Krishna.
Hello, we've got lots of news for you this week, and we've been curating lots of tips that is going to be coming up shortly. And just to follow Peter, my area of focus is around digital communications. I'm particularly passionate and interested in visual content, how we can tell stories with visual, be that live streaming, video, or of course, images that we share.
So this week on the programme, it's an update on various news items which have come out over the past 7 days. And you know, Krishna, there seems barely a day that there isn't a development with either Facebook Live or Periscope specifically. So we'll be mentioning those developments over the last 7 days over the next 30 minutes. And also a new app that you may not have heard about, and also about live streaming in the news, actually making the news here in the UK as well, which has been picked up from across the world. So we'll give you a mention on that as well. Sergeant TCS, who's been on national TV this week. But first of all, let's talk about Facebook Live news and some really big developments. I mean, they really are setting the pace, I think, Krishna, because Facebook Live now essentially changing the way that you watch video. Up until now, you would watch a replay or watch an archive video, and you just kind of sit through it until it got boring and then disappear. Or you would flip through, as you've been able to do now for about 10 months or so on Periscope, and scroll or scrub through until you saw something which was of interest. But of course, you rarely knew what was of interest until you stopped and you consumed another couple of minutes. And that meant that a lot of people were missing some really, really good stuff. However, Facebook Live knows, inverted commas, we'll come to that in a few seconds' time, when the most interesting part of a video is coming. Essentially, it is when lots of people comment or lots of people send emojis. So the emoji is a bit like Periscope's hearts. So what they can do is you can scroll through and see the peak in a kind of graphic display of when more people are interacting with that video. So essentially, that is the moment when more people found it interesting, and you can skip directly to that particular point. As you can understand, that's going to influence how videos are shot, how they're produced, where the content is going to be, and also how people are going to be consuming those as well. So let's just think about that for a second. It may mean that you build various points in during the course of your live stream so that people can specifically see when the most interesting points are. It may be that you have a specific call to action to get people to make comments, to ask questions, or to expressly ask them to send emojis at certain times before or during when you actually make a particularly interesting comment, particularly if you're doing something like a piece to camera like this may be. And apparently Facebook are saying that 2/3 of the watch time for Facebook happens, or Facebook Live happens, when in fact it's not live, despite the actual name. So that gives you the impression that it's really, really important to make video really easy to consume when you're watching it after the fact. And as I say, this graph will be able to show you when most people have interacted. So that is going to be starting in the next little while. If you haven't got it yet, then that's going to be rolling out soon. So watch out for that. And Krishna, you've got some more changes to Facebook Live. Previously, you could only do a Facebook Live video for 90 minutes, but that's been cranked up, isn't it?
And you know, the 90 minutes was actually if you're using the Facebook API. So a lot of broadcasters, news media organizations had been using the API, whereas people like you and I, Peter, might just decide to do it from our mobile device and be out and about, and therefore it isn't 90 minutes in that case. But now you can actually live stream indefinitely. However, there's a caveat. You're not going to be able to get a replay of that. And I think this is really interesting. Let's say you've got a leisure organization or a hospitality business. Now, we did do a live show last week where we actually talked about the issues of copyright and making sure you've got permission in terms of access and anybody who's going to be featured in it. But I've seen lots of live streaming that's been done by, let's say, hotels who actually want to show what's going on in the vicinity, in the area. And so this is going to be very interesting, I think, for organizations in that kind of situation. So they've actually had their API now actually has grown to more than 100 people who are actually 100 organizations who are now providing third-party tools around actually using it. Of course, if you're a developer, you can go off and you can look to build off their API. It's pretty accessible on the Facebook Live page. But now what we can have is that you can actually have people watch your live stream indefinitely. A good example that come across in terms of it's an article in TechCrunch was an organization called explore.org. Now, they've been using nature cameras, live streaming that for a long time. They've actually got some really interesting live streams I've seen on Facebook, but they've also been using this. Obviously, it's not going to have recorded it. So do have a look at them over on Facebook. And in fact, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll find a link to it. Actually, I've already shared that. So that's really interesting. The other couple of features they're building out, I think will be interesting for certain brands. So one is geo-gating. So if you're on Facebook already, you'll know that you can actually schedule or post in real time your content to only be seen by people in a certain location. And so that's what you can now do for videos. That's really interesting for those people. I'm thinking about people I know, such as in the horse racing business, where they've sold their rights and they've got broadcast rights, and therefore they still want to do some live streams of things that are not going to be broadcast on mainstream TV, but they actually don't want to have that shared, let's say, outside of a location. Of course, really important for broadcasters who don't have the rights to the content they're going to be sharing in other locations too. And the other one is age gating, I should say. I actually used to work in the alcoholic beverage industry. That would be really important for them. So, for example, in the UK and Ireland, legal drinking age is 18. In the US, it's 21. So you really don't want people seeing your content outside of those jurisdictions. And of course, you don't want 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds to see your content too. So I think they're really interesting to look out for. So unlimited length of live stream, but no archive of that. And then the other two things to look out for is the geo-gating and also the age gating. Really good to see those coming out. New features as featured in TechCrunch.
So that continuous live stream is like, it's like a webcam by any other name, isn't it? Just being able to put a camera somewhere, linking it through and showing, I don't know, the osprey's nest or the lobby of the hotel or something like that, or the high street or whatever. Some interesting stuff there. And this is really interesting as well, because soon Facebook Live is coming to, if it hasn't reached you,
it's already there. I've seen it.
To Windows 10. Yes, so Windows 10. So you will be able to stream, if you can't already, very, very soon, Facebook Live from your Windows desktop. So again, another innovative feature. Periscope doesn't have that. And in fact, they are recently quoted as saying that they don't want that at all. They want to show you behind the scenes. They want to be completely mobile. So they've kind of ruled that out. I don't know whether they're going to do a pivot. It's another word for a U-turn. Whether they're going to be doing a pivot in the future, I don't know. But really, really interesting. No word yet on whether Facebook Live is going to be coming to Mac or Chromebooks in the near future. Krishna, what other updates?
Tips on that though, Peter. I did test it out. So guess what? I didn't even realize there's a free Facebook app for Windows 10. So you can go to the Windows Store and you can get it. And so I did test it. And I think this is really good for the fact that many people I've come across recently still don't seem to have access to Facebook on their iOS device or on their Android for whatever reason. And so some people were saying, and also perhaps they don't have a smartphone like that. I came across somebody commenting saying, actually, that's really helpful because I don't want to be able to live stream. I can't live stream because I don't have it accessible there. The one thing to watch out for, and I do have a call out to Microsoft in Ireland, and in fact, they'll probably come back to me early this next week, is the fact that I couldn't see a way to choose my camera and I couldn't choose a way to choose my microphone. So that for me is a bit of a flaw in the design. Maybe that's a feature that they've missed, or perhaps it's something that's coming, or maybe it isn't at all. So here, if you're on a platform like Blab, when you know you're on desktop, you can choose the camera you're going to use, and you can choose the audio, the microphone you're going to use. So I hope that comes out. Just really good to see that actually Facebook Live is being made available to more and more people.
Absolutely. So we've got more updates coming. Let's move on to a Periscope. This live stream on Blab won't be more than 30 minutes. So we've got, 19 minutes to go. So we're keeping an eye on the clock. We value your time in watching. And so Periscope news, updates that we've been expecting for a while, and which some people on beta, or everyone on beta, has had for a couple of weeks now. And you've probably heard already. First of all, replays save forever, or live streams save forever, really. And essentially what that means is previously in Incarnation 1, it meant that Periscopes only lasted for 24 hours. And Incarnation 2, it meant you had to put #save if you wanted your Periscope to be saved for more than 24 hours. In amongst all that, of course, came catch.me, which caught all of your scopes, but of course that disappeared about 2 months ago now. And now all of your Periscopes will save for, well, indefinitely, unless you go back in. You can still delete them, or you can set it so they automatically delete after 24 hours. Now, it's really, really interesting what you can do therefore, and that is that you could do some presentations, you could do some training sessions, you could do some presentations to some hard business sells if you wanted to, direct to your phone, perhaps in the middle of the night when you know that nobody is watching. And then once it is saved, then you can keep retweeting that, I don't know, every 3 weeks or every month in some kind of schedule until the end of time. Obviously, you're not getting the interaction, but it saves you uploading stuff to YouTube. It saves people clicking through from Twitter into YouTube, because that takes another 20, 30 seconds, doesn't it, for it all to play out, maybe to go through to the through the pre-roll advert and so on. But you could have playing live in their Twitter stream almost immediately if you do that kind of little hack, little kind of trick there. And another change to Periscope is that now you're able to search for popular places, so popular locations, London, Paris, Munich, or whatever it happens to be. Reminds me of that song by M back in 1970s pop music, doesn't it? So you'll be able to search directly to those cities. I don't think that's necessarily a particularly useful feature, because you already had the map feature anyway, but you can do that. And also you will be able to go through the different categories. So if you have your hashtag in the title, which we mentioned the other week, and someone did a hack on that and mentioned various hashtags in their title, and their Periscope was saved under all of those hashtags in all of those different tabs. And also Kayvon, who is the main man behind Periscope, he was telling a conference earlier on this week. And we're indebted to Corrine Podger, who pointed this out to us. And I didn't see this reported anywhere else, Krishna. And that is that forthcoming updates will enable Periscope to be launched within a tweet. We've been talking about this for so long. It's one of my bugbears. And I really think that now Facebook Live is up and about, that they've really got to, well, frankly, do away with Periscope, do away with the brand Periscope, and just make it essentially a Twitter live video in the same way you've got Facebook live video. So to be able to launch live video direct from inside Twitter is going to be a huge boon to us and to, I think, the company as well.
Oh, I'd miss my Periscope app and to be able to actually see all the people that I'm following there specifically. But I do think in terms of rather than just having to press the GIF, that I could press live, that would be great. And
also, of course, if it means that you can launch inside Twitter, they're going to have to work out how they're going to redesign Twitter so you can see who you're following, and also the map feature and the search feature, and kind of work out that could make Twitter itself a bit more cluttered with more little icons around.
So one of the things that we like to do here on Livestream Insiders is bring you the latest news and case studies and also technology. So be warned, if you watch the show, you could be spending money, and that's what's going to come up now. So DJI have actually just launched a new drone control app, which supports Facebook Live. We've actually talked about drones here in a past episode on the Livestream Insiders. Now, you've always been able to have content and kind of streamed and actually recorded there on a DJI drone, but what you hadn't had as the ability was actually the fact that it actually was going out in real time. And so now you actually can do that. It used to be you had to do it through the onboard memory card, but now with Facebook Live support, you don't have to wait for your drone to land for that to be shared. And in fact, those people who've got a Phantom or Inspire model of the DJI the drone, then you actually can go over and find the app, DJI Go app, and then that's the way that you can start to do so. And in fact, they've also interestingly announced Periscope integration as well. So that Periscope version is going to come. One of the things it seems like they're going to be able to do because of that sketch ability that we see on Periscope is they're also going to make it available for you to annotate the feed. And so, in fact, they also might be allowing you to put in your flight plan with arrows and sketches. That sounds as though it's going to be integrating that feature of sketching, and it's an interesting way to do that. Obviously, we've got to see more of that in the months to come. And you need to make sure, of course, you've got a good connection to be able to do that if your drone is somewhere up there. And of course, make sure you're compliant in terms of your use of your drone.
13 minutes to go. Live stream insiders, Peter Stewart and Krishna Day. New time for us on a Sunday evening. If you want to watch us live, 7 p.m. in London and Dublin time. Let's move along because you just talked about laws and regulations there regarding your use of drones, but also laws and regulations, again, as we discussed last week, to do with copyright and music particularly. New app alert. We should have some kind of klaxon going off here. Musically, that's musical.ly is expanding beyond music videos with the launch of Lively. That's live.ly, which is going to be a live stream platform. It's going to mean that people are going to be able to live stream through it, and streams will be available to watch. 80 million people are using Musically at the moment, and essentially what that means is that you can sing along, you can dub your voice over the top of songs by people like Meghan Trainor and Rihanna, and those musical artists that the young people are watching and listening to at the moment. Obviously, they're trying to get on the live streaming bandwagon along with Facebook Live and Periscope, and they're hoping they can capitalize on that trend. And they're trying to raise something like $500 million to try and work out a way to do all this. So going on from lip syncing, you're actually going to be able to watch people dubbing along live. So that's really interesting as how it's going to be working as far as copyright goes with music. So we'll be watching that one with interest, but I'm sure their lawyers have got a way around that. And maybe you'll be able to watch live, but it won't actually be recorded. Maybe that's the trick around that. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll be watching that with interest.
I know that I went and signed up for Musically. I had not been using it previously, but I just wanted to see the notification for when the live stream comes out. But I do wonder in terms of when people are doing lip syncs, I know from my kids, they will retake and retake and retake. I wonder whether they will actually look to try to do that live. That'll be interesting. So more ways that you can spend money here with us on Livestream Insiders. That's not giving money to us, but more technology. Another piece of tech that's has just been announced. The LTE is from LG. The LTE action camera is going to be available for live streaming to YouTube. You don't need a phone or a Wi-Fi. It's interesting. I wonder who's going to be purchasing this. Well, we get some clues. The camera is actually going to be available from South Korea in June, and it's actually got a battery that will last up to 4 hours of high definition recording. It can capture smooth video when attached to helmets, bikes, cars, and other fast-moving objects. Hope they're not going to be driving and live streaming at the same time, as we've talked about. You've got to make sure you've got somebody else who's doing that in terms of being safe when you're driving. But also, you've got durability in terms of it's got up to 1 meter of water protection for a maximum of 30 minutes. So not one for your deep sea dives, but one definitely going after the probably the adventure market. And so interesting to see that, because perhaps people don't want to take their phones with them and strap them to their helmets anymore. They want a specific camera like we've been able to see with the GoPro. So watch out for that. That was an article featuring it with Tech Times. So if you're into that area, check out what's available coming this June from LG, the new LTE action camera.
And one of our regular supporters, one of our regular viewers, featured on national TV this week. And that was our good friend who I can see there's already, Sergeant TCS, who's sending me some props at the moment, featured on Good Morning Britain on the ITV network here in the United Kingdom. Do you get that, Krishna? Is that beamed over to?
I can get it through, not terrestrial, obviously through
another one. It's talking about don't stream and drive. So here is a couple of screen grabs again, which has been tweeted by a good friend Mitch Jackson over in the United States. So there's some screen grabs of the Sergeant speaking to Piers Morgan and Susanna Reid. So you'll know Piers if you're watching in the United States, of course, because he was on CNN for a couple of years. So he's now back over here. Yeah, thanks for that, sending him back over to us. But a really, really important subject. It's one we've spoken about before, and I'm sure we'll speak about again as well, about the dangers of streaming and driving, and the warnings from various people in a kind of combined effort in all 4 points of the globe not to do that. Now, something that we try and do as often as we can is highlight some good streams and, well, we'll say some bad streams, or maybe not so good streams. So with 8 minutes to go, let's point out a couple of ways that people and different organisations are using Facebook Live, for example. The Sun, I believe, is Britain's most popular newspaper. It's a tabloid newspaper. It's very popular and populist, and they are not slow, being part of Rupert Murdoch's empire, in getting on board any platform that gives them more exposure. So they are really on Facebook Live, and there's been an interesting feature about how they are using Facebook Live. So get some of these stats. They have been using it at various football matches with their dream team. That's the dream team, which works particularly in the sports department, and they showed viewers watching or reacting to a match. That video racked up 2.3 million views. At its peak, 60,000 people were watching that Facebook Live. Boy, oh boy. And then they did another stream in the street outside the stadium after the last game, after West Ham moved from one football ground to another. That got 420,000 views. And of course, as you would expect, one of the great things about live streaming is that, of course, if you're watching, you're able to leave some comments and some direction and some suggestions as well. So they were telling people where they wanted to go. So we're walking up the street and showing them kind of different angles of the stadium and so on. The Dream Team video people there at the Sun newspaper in London has 9 people working just on the videos, and they've got a 4-point checklist, which I thought would be really interesting to share with you about how they imagine, how they work out Facebook Live. The post has got to be timely. Okay, so it's got to be essentially something that is live, something that is happening now. Atmospheric, so I guess they wouldn't just be doing the talking heads. They're talking about reaction. They're talking about atmosphere, lots of sound, lots of reaction. Put the viewer where they want to be, which is kind of what Brian Fanzo says, isn't it? Think like a fan, where do they want to be, and then go there and show them. And also to allow the viewer to dictate the broadcast. Again, that live interaction, which of course is one of the keynote points, or the keystones, I should say, of live video. And they say audience retention is really key for us. Retention is high. People watching 40 minutes and so on. That is really, really important. And they say that anything you get half right with football will always fly, because of course you've already got the atmosphere, you've got the passion, you've got the interest, you've got the fans, you've got a great user base already who are going to be so passionate about watching anything to do with their favourite team, of course. So I just thought I'd share that with you about those 4 keynotes of, or keystones, I should say, about why or how the Sun newspaper in the UK is using Facebook Live.
So now to another publisher who's actually using Facebook Live in a very different way. This is of particular attention if you're an aspiring journalist in the area of fashion, or in fact, perhaps you're a fashion blogger, of which I know there are many. Grazia, which is a fashion magazine in the UK, is actually working with Facebook Live very actively in terms of putting together their next publication in terms of built with input from people using Facebook Live. So people will be able to be involved in decisions being made by the editorial team. So that could be about things like voting on the final cover, posing questions for celebrities who are going to be interviewed, pitching ideas for feature ideas, and they might even get a commission to write a bylined piece for the magazine based on what they're submitting. All the footage that's going to be live streamed during the week of actually pulling this publication together, as well as the ideas that are being shared, are also, I mean, it's a great way for Grazia to crowdsource what people are interested in for their publication. So Facebook is working really closely with Grazia, and in fact, they're providing the team with meeting rooms, a photo studio, green rooms, even a canteen where people can actually, guests can go in to be interviewed and filmed. Clearly a really strong relationship there between Facebook and the publication. And they're going to be live streaming between a particular time of the day. You can find more details about that in Digiday, and also all the links for today's show will be there as well in terms of the information that we share over on Twitter later on. Really interesting way to actually, for a publisher to really access perhaps new talent, but certainly lots of ideas for their publication. And guess what? If you're involved in that, chances are, even if you weren't purchasing the magazine previously, you might do now. And what I've just done is I've just signed up for their app, because you'll get a notification when they're going live. Really interesting ideas about how they're promoting this as well.
And also, of course, if you're not marketing and communications, a lot of it is, even if someone's not going to buy that product or buy that magazine initially, excuse me, it's all about the drip effect. It's having that name, that recognition factor. So maybe, I don't know, sisters in hospital looking around for a magazine. Oh, I've heard of that one. I'll buy that one instead of the next one on the shelf. So it's that kind of thing. It's kind of back of the mind stuff. Okay, 2 minutes to go. So just one more item from me. And this is really, really timely. So we must mention this before we go. But Facebook Live, this is a future good scope. Facebook Live is going to be used on board the International Space Station. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg isn't one to turn down an opportunity for a bit of fantastic publicity. So they're going to be fielding, the astronauts up there are going to be fielding questions from Facebook users down here on planet Earth, all the way up there, all those miles above us, the International Space Station. And they're going to be answering all sorts of questions. Boy, oh boy, that could be a really, really busy stream, couldn't it? After all, you know, Facebook has already got 1.65 billion users. So that's going to be really, really interesting to have a little look at that. If you want to take your chance and see whether your question can be answered by Tim Peake and the rest of the guys on board the ISS, then you need to be logged on and ready to watch and ready to contribute from 12:55 p.m. Eastern Time this coming Wednesday. So that's on NASA's Facebook page, 12:55 p.m. Eastern Time this coming Wednesday. So with just under a minute to go, that's about it from Livestream Insiders for this week. In the future, we're going to be bringing you, as well as the news, some tips about how to make your live streams better as well, with some little kind of instant tips that we'll bring you during the course of our show. Every Sunday night, live from London with me, Peter Stewart, and live from Dublin with Krishna Day, 7 p.m. UK Dublin time.
Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, you can subscribe to the show. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Just a few seconds to go. And that's us here at Livestream Insiders signing out for this week's episode.
So thanks very much indeed for the loan of your eyes and your ears. We value your time, so we're keeping it to 30 minutes. Thank you for watching.